just real quick. So, a few weeks back, in fact, maybe even not even that far back, just a week or two back, I saw these ads for on YouTube for this video called Higher Power, this movie. And apparently, this movie, Higher Power, was being released simultaneously, video on demand, but also on YouTube, other sources. And God, part of it just looked really interesting to me. Like, it's full disclosure. I have this really intense love of this new trend of very gritty, I want to say realistic superheroes, but that's not right. It's more like realistic consequences, realistic window dressing, something like that, where they try to make it so the super thing that happens, whether it's a supernatural event or a guy who gets superpowers or whatever, is as believable as possible. It's kind of dressed up that way. And so I watched it. I rented the Higher Power. I think I watched it on Amazon. And I saw it. And I'm going to review it. Because everybody's been seeing... I can't be the only one seeing these ads. So, here's what it's about. No spoilers, I guess, in case you want to see this thing, but we'll get into that.
This gamma ray burst is the last thing that mankind will see before we are blown out of existence.
We are essentially staring down the barrel of
I
a
hate
gun.
summer. Alright, so getting into this movie real quick. It's essentially about some schlubby guy who... God, I don't know how to describe this movie without being very spoilery. It's a schlubby guy who gets superpowers. Well, and there's a conspiracy to give him powers and manipulate him. So, and to elicit specific emotions from him, because this ties into the superpower thing, and there's a conspiracy thing that's not being described. It plays out a little like, kind of like one of the Saw movies, like manipulating a guy into doing stuff that he would find offensive or scary or something like kill someone, or there's a bomb, and if these guys get to it before you do, it's going to go off and kill all these people, blah, blah, blah. Putting this guy under stress specifically as part of the thing. I could, here's the thing. Explaining the movie would be a spoiler, but then the movie goes to great lengths to explain itself. That's the premise of it. The guy gets superpowers, and you see in the videos he's doing all sorts of, to be fair, nice-looking effects. They're understated enough that they have a grit to them, but at the same time they look impressive. They look powerful, like throwing a police officer like a million miles into the sky. That guy's so dead. That guy's so obviously dead. It's nice, but it's a lot of God, parts of it look like it was filmed on a GoPro. It's like a cheap, expensive movie. I don't know how else to explain that, because there isn't much to it. What I described, putting this guy under stress for a bunch of convoluted situations, missions, tasks, and stuff like that, it's pretty much most of the film. It's the bulk of it. I'd say, God, it goes all the way up till the end, although there's about a quarter of it at the beginning where it's not doing that yet. Let's talk about that first quarter. It's a lot of exposition. It is an awful lot of exposition. Like, to the point it's too much. It's like, at some point I'm sitting there watching it going, stop. Just stop. This is too much exposition. I don't need this described in this much detail. It's trying to flesh out... It's like they filmed the thing and they knew they hadn't described some of the characters well enough. Like we didn't need to, or wasn't long enough. I don't know. But some of the characters, he has two daughters. Like, we have to go to great lengths to explain who they are, what their situation is, and it's not needed, mostly with a voiceover, which is never a good sign, not for a movie this short. Some of the way it was shot, particularly the beginning of it, looked really neat. Like kind of surreal, it did a good job with interesting visuals. Like, I was kind of into it, and then it's like, oh man, this schlubby guy looks really schlubby, like maybe too schlubby. Like, I'm having trouble taking him seriously or caring about him. And we're describing his problems in simultaneously no real detail, but through too much exposition. Like, here's an interview with his psychiatrist. Here's an interview with his AA meeting. Here's an interview with the guy. Here's an interview with his interview when he's getting a job. It's like, this is too much. I don't know why it's like that. I think there's a reason. Like, I don't think it's an artistic vision. I think they were trying to fill something or cover the fact that they couldn't film something else. I don't know. Antagonist, I don't know what the hell to call him, is played by Colin Fiore, I believe his name is. You've seen him in stuff, even if the name doesn't sound familiar. He plays a bald actor who looks really smart and evil. Whenever he's talking, he sounds like he's a villain. Like, this guy could just go to the grocery store and ask for like eggs and shit like that. He would sound like he has an evil plan. It's a really cool actor, and he's been in some neat stuff. He's been in at least one Stephen King movie, like a more of a made-for-TV movie. I know he's been in other stuff too. He's bald, evil, genius guy. It's like, okay, here's the confounding thing. How do you judge this film? If you're gonna say this is, I mean, it has like the producers and effects people from like Transformers movie, like all sorts of other films that had much bigger budgets. So do I judge this as a big or at least middle budget film, or do I judge it as an independent film? If it's an independent film, this is fantastic in places. Like, the effects and some of the stuff looks really good for a low budget film. For a middle budget film, this doesn't look very good at all. There's a couple scenes, they're mostly in the trailer. I'm actually going to show part of the trailer for this. You should see it. I mean, that's why this is why this movie's hard to review, because I want to give them props for trying. Like, they clearly went beyond their means when building this film, but at the same time, they didn't really succeed very well. My reviews for movies are, what are the odds you're going to see this film and not like it? And I think pretty good. As much action as in it, it's a middle grade film. I'd give you even odds, 1 out of 2. Like, I think half the people who are going to see this are just going to be like turned off. Like, if the surreal, like I said, in places, very nice imagery, very good thoughts. Like, some of the stuff was thought out well. If it doesn't grab you, you're just going to pay attention to the other stuff, the poor shooting in some places, the bad dialogue in others, the poorly constructed scenes, the over-exposition. It's going to stick out for you, and you're really not going to react well to this thing. So I think it's even. I think it's 50-50. Do I want to see this film again? No. It is not very... It's not boring, but it's not very closing thoughts. This is a frustratingly middle movie. It's not very... It's not bad, except in places where it is. It's not very interesting, except in a couple places where it is. It's weird, because most middle movies, most like C-grade movies, are kind of bland. Like, they don't really aspire to anything. This one's more up and down. Like, it has some good parts, and has some parts that are pretty really kind of lame. I can't recommend this film. I saw it for like $6-7 or something like that. I don't think it was worth it. So take that. If it's like on Netflix or something, you might want to check it out. It's not terrible, but it's one of those films. Like, if you got curious from the videos on YouTube, the ads on YouTube, that's what happened to me. learn from my mistakes. You know, just be aware this film isn't terribly awesome. It's not an A grade film. If you're just curious, check it out, and you don't mind like throwing down like $6 or whatever, go for it. Otherwise, skip it. Not much else to say. I'm out.